The last time Gamer had me read a book, it drove me insane. What's the harm in reading this one? Oh my gosh, this book is so good! Please help me review, please! This is so good! I love it! The House of the Scorpion was written by Nancy Farmer and published in 2002. It has gained 3 awards since that time, and they were well deserved too. It is a very interesting piece of science fiction. Most of the characters in the novel are based on people in Farmer's life. Anyway, like with all science fiction novels here, let's first go over the world.
Like most science fiction novels, The House of the Scorpion takes place in the future. Mexico has now become the country of Aslan, and the southwestern part of the US has become the country of opium. Opium is a country ruled by drug lords, specifically the Alacrans and the McGregors. The only plant that grows in opium is... opium. What else would it be? El Patron rules opium with an iron fist. But he seems like a nice guy. Surely he's a kind, benevolent leader and isn't planning anyone's untimely demise. Right? Aslan, on the other hand, is not really that great. While opium is currently stuck living 100 years in the past because El Patron wanted everyone to experience what he experienced as a boy, Aslan has been regressing technology to the point where pretty much every civilized part is industrialized. Everything else is just desert. Also, a common thing in both areas is the concept of cloning and putting chips in animals or people to make them more compliant. The people who are chipped are known as idiots or zombies. In fact, our main protagonist is a clone of El Patron.
Mateo Alacran, or El Patron, has asked that a clone of him be made, and he makes a strange request that this clone have an education and be treated as though he has a chance in life. That clone is our main protagonist, Matt. Matt spends the first 6 years of his life living with Celia, El Patron's cook. They live in a little house in the poppy fields, not too far away from the big mansion where El Patron and his family live. Matt has spent most of his childhood in isolation until he is discovered by Stephen, El Patron's great-great-grandson, Emilia, the daughter of Senator Mendoza, and Maria, Emilia's little sister, who is the same age as Matt. The children decide to break Matt out, and Matt tries to go outside to follow them, but our dear protagonist does not know the dangers of stepping on glass barefoot. He is rushed to the mansion, where he is treated kindly until Stephen's father, Mr. Alacran, sees that Matt is a clone. Now, how they could tell he was a clone was a tattoo on his foot, which said that he belonged to the Alacran estate. Clones are not treated very well and are seen as animals. Idiots are seen in a similar light. So Matt is now locked in a room like an animal until El Patron finds out. He is absolutely furious and punishes the woman who held him captive by turning her into an Egypt. El Patron gives Matt his own room and commands that everyone treat him with respect, even though most of the household refuses to do so, but only do it because they fear El Patron. El Patron also gives Matt a bodyguard by the name of Tam Lin, who becomes Matt's father figure. Tam Lin and Celia teach Matt all kinds of things in the 7 years he lives at the house. It is also discovered that Matt is musically gifted, even though El Patron is not. Matt also befriends and forms a relationship with Maria. Matt and Maria also learn that Maria's mother, Esperanza, is alive, but was disowned by Senator Mendoza for her political views. However, during this time, Matt learns why clones are treated like animals. When clones are born, or harvested, they are injected with a substance that renders the brain useless and leaves the clones completely unable to do anything except be an organ donor. This is how El Patron and other people were able to live so long. But El Patron wouldn't do such a thing. He's giving Matt an education and showers him with gifts. Surely he wouldn't murder his clone to save his own life. Would he? Well, I hate to break it to you guys, but that's exactly what happened. At Stephen and Emilia's wedding, El Patron has a heart attack. Maria and Matt know what will happen if a new heart is needed, so they try to flee. But Stephen and Emilia betray them, and Matt is taken to the hospital, while Maria is taken back to the convent in Aslan, where she was studying at. Matt learns that he really did only exist for the purpose of keeping El Patron alive. But Celia reveals that she would constantly feed Matt arsenic. Well, not enough to kill him, but enough so that when his organs are transplanted, it would kill El Patron. El Patron dies, and Tamlin is ordered to dispose of Matt. He pretends to comply and sends Matt on the path to Aslan, where he will find Maria and hopefully Esperanza. Well, when Matt makes it to Aslan, things do not go his way. He meets up with the keepers, who force the boys at the orphanage to do manual labor and live on plankton while they live in luxury. The boys believe that Matt is a spoiled aristocrat at first, but they eventually join him in taking down the keepers, which was not that easy. It's not that easy. Matt and his friend Chacho were taken to the boneyard, a dry lake filled with whale bones, and one slight movement could kill them in an instant. Thankfully, with the help of their friends Fidelito and Tantan, they are able to escape and make it to the convent. At the convent, the keepers find them, but Esperanza is there too, and takes down the keepers. Now guess who else is at the convent? Maria! Esperanza then tells Matt that opium is in a countrywide lockdown and has been for 3 months. Confused, Matt heads back to opium with some people working for Esperanza. Back at opium, the only people at the mansion are the servants, including Celia. Celia and some of the other servants explain what happened. When they were having El Patron's funeral, Tamlin pulled out a bottle of wine that El Patron wanted to be served at his funeral or until he turned 150 years old. He was about 140-ish when he died. This wine was poisoned. So the entire Alacran family and Tamlin, who couldn't bear to live with his sins any longer, are dead. The reason? If El Patron couldn't run the business forever, everyone else was coming with him. This leaves Matt, the only surviving Alacran. He intends to take over the business and set things right. And that's where the story ends. Alright, let's get to the analysis. There is a lot of stuff in here to find. Well, let's start with the themes. A major one that you'd likely catch right off the bat is dealing with individuality and choosing who you want to be. Matt was told his entire life that he is a clone of El Patron and will be just like him, a cruel tyrant. But that's not who Matt becomes in the end. Sure, there were several moments where it seemed like he would become just like El Patron, but he didn't. He became his own person. There is a line that Esperanza says in regards to cloning and how two of the same person can't exist at once, and that since El Patron is dead, that makes Matt human. There were also numerous amounts of foreshadowing sprinkled throughout the book. Tamlin would teach Matt all kinds of survival skills and how to climb mountains. He also taught Matt about opium's real history, not the history that El Patron wanted him to learn. Also, there were many mentions of the monarch butterfly, a butterfly that eats the milkweed plants that are poisonous to predators. Plus, this is one thing you might not notice at first, but when Celia is talking to Matt, she calls him Mi Vida, which is a pet name meaning my life. And every time you see Celia say it, it's italicized, like right here in the slide. But when El Patron starts calling Matt Mi Vida, it's not italicized. This implies that El Patron saw Matt as his life force, his source of immortality, an object, whereas Celia saw Matt as a person, or better yet, she likely saw him as her own son. Overall, this is a good piece of science fiction, and it feels like real science fiction. It really makes you think. There's so much to be found in this story. I'm 99% sure that if you read it a second time, you'd find things in there that you didn't notice before. Now, the age recommendation I'd give for this book is 16 and up. It does get a little graphic at some points, but that's it really, as far as I can remember. Now, The House of the Scorpion did get a sequel in 2013 called The Lord of Opium, which takes place a few hours after The House of the Scorpion. I intend to read that one in my free time, but if I do find some gems worthy of showing on Masters of Literature, I'll probably do a video on it. I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about this great work of science fiction. I strongly recommend that you go out and read it for yourself. Because while my summaries do contain the majority of the story, there's a bunch of stuff that I haven't covered that I think you should find on your own. I hope each one of you gets a chance to read this. Oh, and thanks to my friend, the Gamer91, for recommending this to me. Happy reading, everyone!